Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, 7:45 p.m. Tuesday night, Toastmasters, Golden Speakers Toastmasters Club. My name is Rhonda Whitaker. I am the incoming president for the next year. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm here to serve you, and I'm hoping that you will agree with me on some things that need to be done, and we have lots of man and woman power this year. So let's go. Yeah. Yours at home, we welcome you too. The purpose of Toastmasters. I'd like you to turn to your Toastmasters CC manual. Stop the camera, Cindy. The mission of the club. The mission of the Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every individual member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence. Pat yourself on the shoulder. Self-confidence, everybody.
Yay.
Self-confidence and personal growth. It is a transformative experience. The Toastmasters promise. Being a Toastmaster means more than simply making a commitment to self-development. Everyone who joins a Toastmasters Club is making a commitment to the club, to its members, and to the organization as a whole. We will be having an induction ceremony in 2 weeks for new members. It will be the first one we've had in a year, and we will go over what people promise when they join Toastmasters. At this point, I would like to turn the meeting, actually this is a good time to mention, you can disconnect from your social media and telephones for just an hour and a half. We would appreciate it. Thank you. Now, at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our table topics master, Jeff Shipley. Thank you. Now, I'm a new president. You got to break me in. Thank you for the reminder. Satish is a former past president. I would like to introduce our guests. We have Brando, and we have Sari. Did I get that right? Sarai. Brando and Sarai, and Tom. And I'd like to ask anyone that's willing to say why they came to stand up and say a word about what brought them here. Brando?
I was told by a professor of mine, Stephen Harper, that I should,
Hey, what are you doing?
at the end of a green marketing class, I should check out the Toastmasters in town, and it piqued my interest and curiosity. And I know I could work on my communication skills. I'm a people person, have a great way of words, and I'll be graduating with my MBA in October. And I plan on, with the knowledge I'm gaining, to try to, not try, but it's my God-given ability with communication to touch as many people as I can and change their lives. And I believe that not only just being here to help myself, but meeting wonderful people here in Fairfield, which is coming like a second home of mine. Just to be wonderful people, better myself, and just help to strengthen the community. So that's why I'm here tonight, and for the good times and snacks. I didn't see it.
Second guest, Sarai, would you like to stand up and say?
Okay. I'm here because I suppose I was just following my grace, if anything. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Accomplished. We actually have an advanced communicator gold here, visiting from Arizona, Bob. Bob, would you like to say why you're here
From
tonight?
Arizona? Actually from Texas.
Oh, all right, sorry.
No, I just live half the time here and half the time in Texas. I'll be giving a speech tonight, but I'm just happy to be here, and it's great to associate with Toastmasters again after a long absence.
All right.
One more.
Tom asked, Tom, would you like to say why you're here?
Sure. I'm here to support Rick Starr, my coworker.
Now, I would like to, can we turn the cooler on in here? I would like to introduce Satish Sabapati, our tabletop
Toastmaster.
Toastmaster. I have to put my glasses on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ronda Whitaker. It's my role as a Toastmaster today. I'll be helping to make the flow smooth, and I'll also introduce the theme of the day, and then introduce the role players who help us make the transition flow smoothly. So the theme of the day is independence, and VP of Ed, Dan Craig, has chosen the quote by Wynton Marsalis: "Many a revolution started with the actions of a few. Only 56 men signed the Declaration of Independence. A few hanging together can lead a nation to change." So I see a lot of powerful words in this statement, in this quote, like revolution, a start, then action, leadership, and change in the nation. So keep all these in mind, and now let's move on with no further delay. I already got a sign, which is I have to move on. So let's introduce the players will introduce themselves, and the first one is our timer, Veera Elizabeth. Could you please tell what's your role today?
Hello. My role as timer is to inform you where you're at in your speeches. For table topics, it is 1 to 2 minutes. The green light goes on at 1 minute, the yellow at 1:30, and the red at 2 minutes. And speeches, does anyone have a 5 to 7 speech tonight? Okay, and your name?
Yes.
Okay. At 5 minutes, the green light's on. At 6 minutes, the yellow. At 7, the red. And table topics evaluators are 2 to 3 minutes. 2 minutes goes the green. 2.5 minutes yellow. 3 minutes the red. Speech evaluators, same, 2 to 3 minutes. And I believe we have 3 speakers. And who's another speaker? Charlene?
Mine is 9 to 11.
Okay. So 9 to 11 would be yellow light, green at 9. And this one, yellow at 10, and the red at 11. Well, you have it, I'll report at the end of the meeting.
Break.
Oh, Rick, okay.
4 to 6.
Okay, 4 to 6. So the green light would be on at 4, the yellow at 5, and the red at 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Veera. While we are busy enjoying the sessions, there is someone out there counting what? We'll hear from our counter, John Laurels.
Good evening. My role tonight is to listen to every speech and to take note and tally all of the small words that we use that aren't really they don't have much meaning, like us and ahs, ums, likes, you knows, so's, buts, ands, tongue clicks, pauses, Xeroxes, and false starts. And I'll be doing that for everyone who's speaking tonight except for visitors, icebreaker people. And you get a free pass. You can say any odds.
Thank you, John. To help us improve our vocabulary, we shall now call upon our grammarian, Jyotiraj Adhikari, to introduce the word of the day and his role.
Good evening, everyone. My role tonight is to present a word and keep a track of good uses and bad uses of the word, and how many times everybody use that word, or anyone use that word. I have to present a word. My word today is it's near to our theme tonight. My word tonight is salvation. Salvation means liberty from slavery, sin, or dependence. Actually, salvation is generally, in dictionary I found most of the time salvation was generally attached with church and the Christianity, but I don't know why it was. I was told from the beginning that salvation means absolute freedom. In Sanskrit, the meaning is moksha. In Sanskrit, salvation is called moksha. Moksha is absolute freedom, liberty from everything. Three paths to salvation prescribed in Bhagavad Gita are Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. So Bhakti is worshipping, knowing people as a God, knowing God, and to reach a God that will take you to the salvation, complete freedom from your life. And Karma Yoga is doing your duty, what is prescribed to you. If you do the duty, you will achieve salvation, moksha. Jnana Yoga. Jnana means knowledge. Gaining knowledge, being a knowledgeable person, and spread the knowledge for the welfare of the world and the people. That will take you to the freedom. It will liberate you from the slavery, sin, and dependency. That will give you the salvation, moksha. Thank you very much.
Our next role player will be a general evaluator from whom you'll hear at the end of the meeting. That's Rhonda Whitaker. And then our group joke master and greeter is Dan Craig. Again, you'll hear from him a joke at the end, towards the end of the meeting. And our ballot counter, lead counter is Diane Denbon. Now it's time to turn the meeting over to our table topics master, Jeff Shipley.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests and members, viewers at home, I'm tonight's Table Topics Master. I assembled 14 quotes drawing heavily from our theme of independence. As you all know, this Thursday is the 237th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which is where our British colonist predecessors essentially pledged their life, wealth, and sacred honor to challenge the strongest empire on the face of the earth at that time. Many thought it was a suicidal endeavor, and for whatever reason, they succeeded and earned their salvation. So I have 14 quotes here, like I said. 11 of them are quotes from our founding American icons, founding fathers, which have survived the annals of history. And just for good measure, I threw 3 quotes from the great soul of Indian independence, Mohandas Karchmat Gandhi. And so you can speak to the quotes in their original political context. If it resonates with you, you can speak about that. If the quote you don't care for, you're more than welcome to speak on whatever you would like. There really are no restrictions in table topics. So if that introduction is sufficient, I'll draw up any volunteer who wishes. William Burns.
All right, go.
1 through 14. Whoa. I'll just choose which one I like best anyways.
Boom.
All right. If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not you your counsel of arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen. That was said by Samuel Adams.
Huzzah. Could you read it one more time, Joe?
If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not you your counsels or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen.
Thank you, Jeff. Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, and viewers at home. Sorry. This is a fascinating question to me because it's this question of choice. It's this question of, do you enjoy these bountiful things that are given to you by somebody else, but remain chained either, I guess, sort of metaphorically, literally, or just, I guess, economically, is another way. And it raises this question. I mean, you could have everything that you ever want, but if you don't have freedom, would you really be happy? And I think that's an interesting question. Actually, I ask each of you to take a moment here and think about that. If you had every material desire, if you have material desires, if they were fulfilled, but you didn't have your freedom, would you be satisfied and would you be happy?
No.
Yeah, and I kind of think about that myself as well. And I think about actually pets. You know, my girlfriend has a cat, and it's an adorable animal, but it's a creature that is so dependent upon another one. Its needs require me or her to be there to take care of her, to feed her, to shelter for her. And we think of her as a simple creature. I may feel affection to her, I may pet her and love her in a way, but I don't really respect her. I don't have the respect for her because she doesn't have any choices. She doesn't have any ability. And it's sort of a silly example, I think. But it illustrates, I think if you think about a way with people that make sacrifices, that actually bind themselves to servitude, to something, to either do no their own. So I'd ask each of you to think about that yourself in your own lives, to cast free your chains and seek liberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. I'm proud to call you and your cat my countrymen. Any other volunteers? Stephanie. 14.
3.
The mind, once enlightened, cannot again become dark. Thomas Paine.
Hello, Toastmasters, honoured guests and viewers at home. I'm quite impressed by the quote that Jeffrey selected because I never really think of politicians as thinking about enlightenment. Maybe in the past they did. Nowadays, they don't seem to talk about it. So I thought it was a very interesting quote. And I think it is also very true in that we generally think of someone who becomes enlightened who has developed their state of consciousness so they don't make mistakes, so they have nothing to feel sorry for, that they then wouldn't step backwards and do something wrong. They couldn't go back to the dark side of things. So I think it's very interesting in that it's captured what we see as a state of enlightenment. I don't think many of our politicians aspire to enlightenment these days, but perhaps they are generally hoping that the people that they serve are aiming for that sort of thing. I mean, obviously they want to bring a state where there's no more fear and there's less gun violence and all this sort of thing. So they're hoping that they can do things to raise the level of consciousness of the people that they're serving so that they won't be inclined to do such things. I mean, there's been some talk with the whole gun debate about trying to improve the mental health of people in society so that it doesn't give rise to these sort of people who do these crazy things. And I think it's interesting, but I think it's a difficult area because how do you really know what people need to bring about that sort of change in them? And mental health treatments often are very lacking, and they don't always work. So I think it's interesting if we took more of a view of aiming for enlightenment of everyone, like this other politician did, maybe we'd have more success.
Okay, that's all the time I have, except our guest raised his hand.
Oh, I wanted to try. We've run out of time.
We've run out of time. I'm sorry. You'll have to come back next week.
Yeah.
All right, I'll turn the meeting back over to the... Now we'll take just a quick moment to vote for the best table topic speaker, either Stephanie or Will. And did both speakers qualify, Vera?
Yes, they did. Will with 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Stephanie, 2 minutes, 13 seconds.
I was waiting.
I'd like to call up our table topics evaluator to evaluate both speakers, Karen Hale.
Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. Take the next few minutes to evaluate our table topics speakers, starting with Will Burns. Came out with a very firm handshake and started off with very strong gestures. And I appreciated how he came forward here, and I felt that I was included. Because he was standing here, I felt very much included wherever he was speaking from. And the theme he announced right away is about choice, and he was very clear about what he was going to cover. So I had a clear sense of structure and direction. The only thing I would comment on is at the end, right when you were reaching your conclusion, it felt like you were dropping, so that I felt like I think there was a very strong word where you dropped in volume, and I felt like that was your summative statement, so I felt like maybe there was a sense of self-doubt. And whatever you're feeling at that point, maybe just deliver with strength and bring it out with confidence. But you ended well. So whatever happened there, you exited the stage with confidence again, so you have great poise, and I appreciate that. Stephanie? Your talk seemed to be about enlightenment, and you wove the theme of liberation and independence around that topic of enlightenment. And you started out with a good greeting, and although you started here and seemed to take some kind of shelter at this position for a while, you did eventually move out, and I was happy to see you move over here, and then I felt like you kind of moved into your own, so that was wonderful to use the stage. At the same time, I wasn't sure if there was a clear use of stage and structure, so it would be nice to coordinate those two things. Now, if you're moving forward, does that actually move in with some sense of structure? And the other little thing I noticed was this nervous sort of laughter that didn't go along with some humor element, and it didn't really add to what you were saying. So, same kind of thing with Will. Even if you're feeling a little bit of doubt, just take that out and share it with confidence. That will be my portion of evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Now let's move on to the next session, which is prepared speeches. And to read the objectives of the first speaker, I call William Burns to introduce Rick Starr.
Thank you, Satish. This is a big moment in any Toastmasters career. The start, his first speech. Rick will, in a moment, come up here, and he will speak with confidence, poise, power. He will discover speaking skills he didn't perhaps know that he had. And he will do it in a positive, reinforcing environment. Now Rick is from New York. He's lived in Fairfield for the past 30 years. And the title of his speech is From the Big Apple to the Heartland. Please warmly welcome Rick Starr.
Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. I'm very excited to be here to be giving my first Toastmasters talk tonight. And I have high hopes that Toastmasters will be my salvation from poor public speaking. I work out at Cambridge, and I'm taking a public speaking class there also. And today I gave a speech to that class. And the difference is, in that speech, I was wearing a white lab coat, a red clown's nose, and funny black glasses. I was thinking of wearing them tonight, but I changed my mind. So as Will mentioned, I'm from New York, and I've lived in Fairfield for a while. And the title of my speech is From the Big Apple to the Heartland. And I'd like to tell you a little bit of some of the places I've lived and some of the things I've done. I was born in New York City, not Manhattan, but in the borough of Queens, which is across the East River from Manhattan on Long Island. We had a family, my mom, my dad, 2 sisters, and a brother. My father was a musician, and in fact, during the big band era, he was a professional musician. Unfortunately, none of his musical talent landed in me. And not sure why that happened. When we were in high school, when I was in high school, we moved out further east on Long Island. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the East Coast, Long Island is just that, a long island. The westernmost part is part of New York City, and the easternmost part, Montauk Point, is 120 miles out in the Atlantic. And Long Island has, among other things, the most beautiful beaches. Beaches like Jones Beach and Fire Island and the Hamptons. And that's one of the things that makes Long Island a little different from Iowa. And there are differences. And there are differences between Long Island and Iowa, and there are similarities between Long Island and Iowa. And one of the similarities is Native American names. Iowa has a lot of Indian names. Iowa and Ottumwa and Keokuk are all Indian names. And Long Island has Indian names like Montauk and Ronkonkoma and Massapequa. Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian, who is also from Long Island, said Massapequa is an Indian word. It means land by them all. And so I went to high school on Long Island. I went to college on Long Island at Stony Brook University, which is where I met my wife Sharon. And later on, I started my career as a computer programmer on Long Island at a company called Publishers Clearinghouse, the sweepstakes company. In fact, we're still waiting for the Publishers Clearinghouse Prize Patrol, or as we call it, our retirement plan. After we graduated college, my wife and I did 2 things. We got married and we became TM teachers. And we spent the next 7 or 8 years traveling around studying TM and teaching TM. And we lived in many different parts of the country. We lived on the East Coast, we lived on the West Coast, we lived in New York, we lived in Washington, D.C., we lived in California, and we traveled to many places in Europe. We lived in very beautiful places on the East Coast, on Long Island. We lived a few miles from the ocean in California. We lived right on the Pacific Ocean, and we saw beautiful places in Europe, and we saw the Alps, we saw the Mediterranean. So we lived all over the place. And my mom, she always said that she had to write our addresses in pencil in her address book because we moved so many times. In 1985, though, our wandering came to an end and we moved to Fairfield, which is our home, and it really is our home. We love Fairfield. Our son was born here. I guess that makes him a native Iowan. And my father's musical ability, which somehow passed over me, landed on my son. He's a musician, he's a DJ, he composes electronic music, and his music's a little different than the music my father played in the big band era, but he is a musician and he's carrying on that family tradition. And since I've been in Iowa, I've continued my career in computers. I've worked in various positions as a computer programmer. I've worked as a project manager. I've worked as an IT director for various companies here in town. And for the past couple of years, I've been working out at Cambridge, also in computers. Or as we say in New York, again with computers. So this is my story. It's the story of starting out in New York and traveling around a while and winding up in Fairfield, having a home in the heartland. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick Starr, for sharing your story. Now let's take 2 minutes to evaluate Rick Starr's speech, and our guests are also welcome to use the evaluation form and fill it out. Thank you. Welcome back. Now let's move on to our second speaker. And to introduce the second speaker, I call upon Steve Harper to introduce Darlene.
Thank you. This evening, Darlene will be working on Project 9, Persuade with Power. The title of her speech is Waking Down in Mutuality. What is waking down in mutuality? Thank you for asking. Darlene will be explaining with us briefly what each part means. The waking, the down, and the mutuality, as well as the life-changing impact of being part of this spiritual group has had on her life. Saniel Bonder is the founder of Waking Down and has been working for the past 20+ years, along with Waking Down teachers and mentors to help others awaken to their true self. After Saniel had his awakening, he said, "I want to have company." Darlene has been involved with Waking Down and Mutuality community for over 4 years and is currently serving as a mentor in the work. Through this project, though this project is on Persuade with Power, Darlene's intention is really to share this as an invitation, not to persuade with power, but rather to share and perhaps inspire. Her speech is 9 to 11 minutes. Please welcome Darlene.
Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, honored and distinguished guests, and viewers at home. This evening I am going to share with you a spiritual community that I have been involved with for 4 years. As Stephen mentioned, the founder, his name is Saniel Bonder, and about 20 years ago he had his awakening. And he found that as people were coming to his sittings and his meditation, that something was being transmitted through them, through him, that was accelerating other people's awakening process. It was just happening. He wanted company, he got company. So that began the beginning of Waking Down in Mutuality. Waking Down is unlike, from my personal experience, unlike other communities I personally have been involved with, where there is, the guru is up here and all the seekers are down here. It is democratic, and that's something that is very unique, it's very real, and it plays out in the community. So first I'm going to share with you waking. Waking has to do with the part of us that wakes up. It's the consciousness piece. It's knowing consciousness and God in and as us. It's vast, it's big, it's huge. It's a wonderful, blissful connection. There are a lot of people that have consciousness awakings. It's connected with the universe, not feeling a separation any longer. Not feeling like you're this little me and you're all isolated. You're connected to everything, everyone. Plants, people. There's no separation between me and Satish.
we're connected, we're one. Waking down. However, it's not called waking up, it's called waking down. There's a book in our community called Dancing in the Fire. And in this book, there is 38 stories of people's awakening and their experience. And they are just as unique as they are, because we all are a unique expression of being. So it's not this cookie cutter way. There are threads that you will see that go through each person's story, but it's still very unique to them, how their awakening occurred, what their experience was, what it felt like to them, where they were. So waking down, it's also embracing all the parts of us. We have a term that's called spirit matter split, where spirit is over here, matter is here, and we kind of elevate spirit, but the humanity part of ourselves, such as our feelings, our thoughts, our desires, they're kind of like pushed off to the side. They're not considered maybe spiritual. But it's healing that, what we call spirit matter split, and seeing the humanity parts of ourselves just as sacred as the spiritual parts of ourselves, and marrying them together, and no longer isolating the feelings of maybe judgments, of jealousy, of envy. We all feel that. But instead of saying it doesn't exist, no, can't go there, whoop, no, gotta stay over here, you acknowledge, I was feeling judgmental, I was feeling jealous. It doesn't mean you have to act out on it, it's just acknowledging it, that it's there. It takes a lot of energy not to acknowledge something that we feel or it's with us. It's more, it frees up the energy when we let ourselves really be who we are, to be our true selves. So we have found in this awakening process that it really is going down into the body, honoring all the matter parts of ourselves as much as we honor the divine parts of ourselves. There's a book by Robert Augustus Masters. It's called Spiritual Bypassing. And it talks a lot about what many spiritual communities do in order to bypass the shadow aspects of themselves. Not to look at it, just being spiritual. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it for anyone who may be interested. Waking down in mutuality. Mutuality. Mutuality is valuing someone else and their ideas and their opinions and their feelings just as much as you value your own. So if something happens with somebody, it's leaning into them and hearing them and getting their perspective and their point and honoring that it's just as valid as what your point, what you're feeling, what your thoughts may be on a particular item or feeling. Waking down is not guru-centered, it's aspirin-centered. So it's about facilitating your growth, not that the teacher is up here and we're all down here. You can challenge a teacher. You can get angry at a teacher, and they're not going to like push back on you and say, you're projecting, look at that, what's going on with you? They're going to like help you to process that. And a lot of people have been abused by spirituality. There's been a lot of damage done in the name of spirituality. A lot of people need to be healed of that. They need to know they can come to a place and they can speak out their anger, speak out their rage, speak out their hurt, speak out their pain. Maybe they have felt angry as a child to their parent. I hate my mother, I hate my father, but they would never speak it out because that would not be allowed. I could never say, I hate my mother, I hate my father. But some of those parts are really real. Maybe as a child you did hate your mother, you did hate your father. That was real, that was your truth. And to be able to say that, as a mentor, I hear all these people sharing their different things, and they're like, oh, well, I really can't say that, can I? We have a term that's called green lighting, where it's from the movie, from the film industry. The green light's on, you move forward, you go forward. It's like green lighting all these aspects of ourselves, and someone giving you permission that says, it's okay to say that I hate my mother. Doesn't mean you're going to stay there. And when you release that, it releases energy. You kind of relax into a part of yourself that you never kind of like, whoa, I could never go there. When we embrace all these aspects of ourselves, we integrate them, it gives us much more energy in life. How am I doing with my time over there?
Now it's 7.5 minutes.
Okay, all right. We have a book that was written by one of the teachers. It's called Becoming Divinely Human. And Samuel is the founder, and I love him dearly. He is not the best writer. He's very intellectual. He gets down all these rabbit holes. I get really lost. So when this teacher wrote this particular book, it was like, whoa, this is great. It's clear, it's simple, and anybody who would want to know more about waking down, I would highly recommend it. And Samuel himself would say, yeah, read this book. My books are kind of, you can get lost in them. So he's not concerned about that whatsoever. I want to share with you a brief experience I had with mutuality with one of the teachers that I work with. About 2 weeks ago, I had a session with this teacher, and I was venting and ranting about things that I'm unhappy about in my life. I'm not happy with my job. There's other things that are going on. And waking down, I'm allowed to quote bitch and complain about it. And there's like this release that happens because I'm not stuffing it all down. It's like I'm getting it out and I'm being real, but that is how I'm feeling in the moment. Well, somewhere in that process, he started saying you statements, you da-da-da-da, you da-da-da, and I was starting to feel confused and thinking, you know, what's going on here? This is not feeling right to me. Something is off here. And I was feeling really fragile inside, and it actually brought me to tears. And I remember saying to him, I don't feel like you're hearing me. I haven't talked to you for 2 months, and I feel like you're just not hearing what I'm saying. And he kind of went on a little bit more, and I'm just feeling within my own self that something is really off here. But I didn't know at the time that he was triggered and that he was reacting to something that I had said. So further on, I said, you know, I really feel that you're being arrogant. How many teachers can you say that to, that don't shut you down, that say da-da-da-da-da? There was something that he paused. And I think he, at that point, was able to catch maybe something that was happening for him. For me, I was just kind of like, ooh, I was still like pretty feeling fragile because I've never had this experience with any of my teachers like this or with this particular teacher who I have always felt extremely protected and supported by. But in that, I just kept speaking my truth. And at the end of it, it was a little shaky. I felt really uncomfortable at the end of the session, and he said, I would like to have a session with you tomorrow, a free session, so we can talk about this more. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that right away. He goes, whenever you want to do it, it's totally fine. So the next day, I did have a session. I was feeling nervous and like, oh, what if he gets triggered again, you know? And my husband was like, well, you know, he's going to be in a different place. He's going to realize that he was triggered. So I said, were you triggered? Were you reacting? He goes, I was. I am so sorry. I said, he goes, I don't know what happened, but I got triggered by what you said, and I am so sorry for that. And then I said, we have a term, it's called unpacking, so I asked him specifically different things. Well, what about this? He goes, I said that? He goes, I said, yeah, you said that. Oh, boy, Darlene, I am so sorry. He goes, oh, man, he goes, that was a terrible session with me, wasn't it? I'm like, yeah, it wasn't too good. You know? So it was really difficult. It was really challenging, but because of that, I'm now closer with him because he leaned in. He acknowledged his fault. He apologized to me. He acknowledged he was wrong. So I now feel closer to him because of all of that experience. So Waking Down in Mutuality. There's a website if anybody wants to check it out. And thank you all.
Thank you, darling, for that way down call for mutuality and inviting relationship with guru and student. Thank you. Now let's take 2 minutes to evaluate her speech. Welcome back. Now let's move on to the last speech, prepared speech of the day. And to introduce the speaker, I invite Jean Symington Craig to introduce Bob Burns. All right.
pleasure to be seeing Bob Burns again in our club. He's been a longtime member. He's still a member, isn't that?
Yep.
So Bob is a member. Just so let's just give him a hand for that. Even though he's a road warrior and is not able to visit with us all that often, but he supports the club with his dues and his attention. Bob is going to be doing project number 3. Now Bob is an advanced communicator gold, which for those of you that are new he's done everything on the speaker track side of things, which is awesome. 40 speeches plus extra projects and things like that, and I remember a number of those projects. Bob is a very accomplished speaker. But he is going to be working out of the Competent Communicator Manual because we don't do anything for free. And he wants to give a speech tonight, and we've picked out project number 3, which is get to the point. The objectives are to select a speech topic and determine its general and specific purposes. Organize the speech in a manner that best achieves those purposes. Ensure the beginning, body, and conclusion reinforce the purposes. Project sincerity and conviction and control any nervousness you may feel. Strive not to use notes. Bob Burns has been a Toastmaster for more than 18 years. However, he has been a bit inactive the last 2 years. That is a good reason to become active again. Toastmasters as salvation. As an ATM Gold, advanced Gold speaker, he always strives to improve. His speech tonight is the Competent Communicator 3, Get to the Point, and his title is The Written Truth. Please help me warmly welcome Bob Burns.
Thank you, Jean. It's always great to have you as my evaluator because I know I'm going to get some great feedback. Well, good evening, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and everybody paying attention at home. Thanks for tuning in. And it's great to be back, and it's great to be up here speaking, and it's great to be participating in the club again after a long absence. So I'm just excited to be here. And excited to give this speech, because this speech was inspired to me by Max Lucado. This is Max Lucado. And I go to his church down in San Antonio, Texas, and he's an author of probably 20 books. And he's an inspirational speaker, but he's also a man of God. He's a great guy down in Oak Hills Church that I attend, and I met him many times and listened to many speeches that he's given and sermons. So he's a great guy. But this is about the written truth. So what is the written truth? Can we get guidance from the written truth to actually apply to our lives? Can that actually work? Well, what is the written truth? Well, this is what it is. It's the Bible. That's what it is. And can we get guidance to apply to our lives just about every day? Absolutely. Now, why do we believe in the Bible? Well, there's many reasons to believe in the Bible, but let me cover 4 of those with you. Composition. Well, what is composition? Composition is absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. It's composed over 16 centuries by 40 different authors. Each did not know each other, but might be familiar with each other. And it was composed in 3 different languages. It really started in Hebrew. And in Exodus 34:27, it records God's words to Moses. And that's where he actually gave the 10 Commandments. And it was in Hebrew. Then it was also in Aramaic. And that's in Ezra and Daniel. Is the only time it was translated from Aramaic in Ezra and Daniel. And then when we moved to the New Testament, it was in Greek. And Greek is a language of scholarship. So therefore, that's what the whole New Testament was written. But the thing about the Bible is that it has one central theme. And I'll talk to you about that theme a little bit later in the speech. But it was written by a number of different people. It was written by soldiers. It was written by doctors, shepherds, scholars, fishermen, a variety of different people. How many books do you know that are written by a variety of different people with the same common theme? It was even impossible for those authors to possibly know each other throughout the writings of the Bible. Practically impossible. Well, what's the second reason for the Bible? Well, it's its durability. What do I mean by durability? Well, it's the single #1 most published book in the last 300 years. #1. Translated from 3 languages into 1,200 languages. So it applies everywhere throughout the world. This book was burned by dictators, and it was banished in courtrooms. But God's Word still lives, doesn't it? And the third good reason for the Bible, and this is absolutely amazing, is a prophecy. The Bible contains more than 300 fulfilled prophecies about the life of Christ. It's a substantial biography over 500 years before he was born. Now, think about this. Can you imagine if we had a book to prophesize the future? Let's say in 1900 that we predicted 2 world wars, Civil War, a depression, 2 atomic bombs, the assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King, or even the development of the PC of the iPod. Isn't that amazing? If we could have predicted that. And I'm sure some people have predicted some of that, but not as a prophecy. Would we believe in that kind of book? Maybe. Do we believe in the Bible? Of course. And the last is applicability. How does it apply? Well, the Apostle Paul says that the Bible is so useful for teaching, showing people what is wrong in their lives and how to correct it. And actually for correcting faults and for teaching us how to live right. And that's actually stated in 2 Timothy 3:16. For example, we can use the Bible for some of the following. Principles of stewardship. How do we manage our money? How do we get out of debt? How about principles of fidelity to our marriage, to live a happy life in a relationship that we have? How about principles for forgiveness in a relationship with friends, family, other people? What about learning? And how do we learn? Can the Bible really help us to become successful? Absolutely. Has it worked for me? I think so, when I use it. So apply the Bible and see how it works, along with the other ways that you use for enlightenment and education. So remember, the Bible. It was written in another time. It was written in another culture. It was written in 3 other languages. And this I really do have to read, but the Scripture marries eternal truth with historical particularity, which means that it will fit today like it did in the past. The Bible's purpose is simple. It's to proclaim God's plan to save His children. It asserts that people that are lost will be saved. Salvation. The Bible's purpose is not to transplant an ancient culture into our times, but to adapt it to the present. And it is. It's adapted to the present. It applies everywhere in every part of the globe. So the purpose is to reveal the gospel to us. It's to give us our salvation. That's twice. Which is the life and ultimate death of Jesus Christ, who died for our sins so we can experience eternal life in the future. So just to conclude, because I have to conclude, the Bible should be our guide for liberty and for freedom. And people really do believe in the Bible, but do they really exercise the Bible? Probably not. Not a lot. They don't proclaim it like they should, and they don't exercise it like they should. Is it the written truth? Yes, it is. But it also should be the absolute living, everyday truth. Mr. Toastmaster.
you, Bob, for sharing the written, reminding the written truth, eternal truth. Thank you. Now let's take 2 minutes to evaluate our speaker. Welcome back. Before we move on to the last section, our timer, could you please let us know if all 3 speakers qualified?
All 3 speakers did great, but Bob Burns, no. Darlene and Rick, yes. And Karen, yes.
So let's vote for Darlene or Rick. Welcome back. Now we are into the evaluation section. And now I turn over the meeting to our general evaluator, Rhonda Whittaker.
Thank you, Satish, for that. Now, evaluations are a positive experience. For the person receiving the evaluation, it is to enhance their good habits and to minimize the things that they could improve on by suggesting 1 or 2 things and an example of how it could be done a little better. Our first evaluator is Mr. William Burns, evaluating Rick Starr. Please help me welcome.
Thank you, Rhonda, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, and especially Rick. This was the icebreaker. Your first speech here at Toastmasters, but not your first speech ever. You already clearly had confidence and ability coming up here. The strong points that I saw you had. 1, I really liked the good greeting. I don't know if you picked up from us or just from your own habits in the past or other lessons, but you greeted the audience and the Toastmaster, and that was something that I don't see a lot with an icebreaker, and I was impressed by that. As well as your way of weaving your dad's big band experience, the details about your siblings, and that frequent moving with location. How you were born in Queens and then moved to Long Island, and then elsewhere from there. How well did the audience get to know the speaker? I feel quite well. You made it very clear that you have no musical talent, but you have a great talent in computer science and as a programmer, and then on as a project manager and a IT director. You clearly were very prepared for your speech. You spoke clearly and audibly, which is another good sign of your preparation and confidence. And I want to really call attention to your opening body and conclusion, because I feel like you did a really good job of starting with your birth and stories about your life at the start as a good opening, kind of that traditional biographical element. Talked about your experiences and your professional experiences, your travels, your development, and then kind of how we came from this part where you're originally where thinking about your dad and your mom to your son, and carrying on that whole tradition and the way that it interacts. That was a very good way to kind of close that in some ways I got the impression that your son was like you, but different in subtle ways. I also like that you didn't use notes. There was another good element there that you did. In closing, I just want to articulate a few things. I felt you did a really good job of greeting the audience. I would just ask that you shake the Toastmaster's hand at the end as well as a matter of protocol. And also, I would just like more details, because I love details. You know, the name of your son, and also your certifications. If you've, I imagine you're probably a .NET programmer, or you probably have many talents and many certifications.
Or I'm a manager now.
Manager now, okay, I got you. Well, that would have been fun to hear as well. But I loved that we weaved it all together. So thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our second evaluator. I'm not sure who it is. No, thank you, Steve. Our second evaluator is Mr. Steve Harper for Darlene Martin. Let me warmly welcome Steve.
purpose of Darlene's speech was to persuade with power. I think that, Darlene, you persuaded more with your warm personality, which is just so compelling. You have a wonderful smile, great eye contact. We really feel that you're very approachable. I liked how you set up the stage with the 3 stools and sat down in a very comfortable, relaxed mode, which I think was very appropriate and very effective for this speech, because you were talking about mutuality and connecting with people, and how the experience is something to share, and that it's an intimate experience. So the only problem that I had personally was that I think maybe you got so relaxed that you were a little bit too soft. I would say speak up a little bit more. I really liked your use of props. The poster told me exactly what kept reminding me, because it was up there, of what you were talking about, waking down, mutuality. But the most effective prop I think I've ever heard was your use of that bell, or the bowl, with that tone. It just really, didn't it catch your attention and wake you up? Also, your hand gestures. You're talking about being one with the universe, and your hands are like this, really expressing what you're talking about. And I can't remember what you were saying, but I remember seeing your hands go like this, and, and I just thought, wow, I've never seen that hand gesture before. It really caught my attention. Now, they ask if you appealed to our self-interest. And I would have to say that although this was very logical, and your sincerity spoke very strongly, and your compelling personality, I didn't find it personally to appeal to my self-interest so much. And I think that the reason was that I was hoping that you would give more examples of personal transformation that would really grab my heart. Finally, towards the end of the speech, you got around to talking about one, but I would like to have seen a lot more of that a lot sooner, a lot earlier on. You projected a lot of sincerity and conviction. You're a very credible source. You really know your topic. You used facts and logical reasoning very well. Your speech was very well organized. It was very effective. Your body language was excellent. I really enjoyed hearing you give this speech. I think it was very successful. Thank you very much.
And we will welcome Jean Symington Craig, our evaluator for Bob Burns, to come up.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests and viewers at home. Anyone who knows me knows I'm always emphasizing that our meetings are non-denominational. This club is a non-denominational club, and this meeting has made me really excited because we've just had a whole gamut of all kinds of views and orientations, and I loved it. And Bob just loved the presentation on the Bible. Let me just go through some of the points here. I thought his speech was informative. That was the general purpose, but there was a little bit of a persuasion element at the end because he gave us a call to action. I'll get to that in just a moment. His specific purpose was, what is the Bible, telling us about it, and why is it important for us to know something about it, and why is it good to know some things about the Bible. The organization, he gave us reasons. And there were, I counted 4 reasons. One was written by many authors, a number of languages. It was a very comprehensive book, durability, prophecy, and applicability. Each one of his main points, he really backed up with lots of facts. I learned a lot from this speech, which is cool because one of the goals was not to use notes, but if you have a lot of facts that are backing up your points, I feel it's acceptable to refer to your notes so that you don't leave something out and that you're making sure that you're accurate. I felt the points were all supported very well. I'm going to move right to what the speaker could have done differently to make the speech more effective. I felt because Bob is an advanced speaker, first of all, I would have probably asked for a little more time on this one. And thank you for stepping in. There was an opening and that. But if you had had a little more time, I would have suggested that you work in some of the objections that you're commonly heard about the Bible and maybe answer them. And of the 4 reasons that you had, the first one I think is the one that's a little weak, the one that's about, it's written by many authors, it's a number of different languages. You were making the point, well, nobody could have really talked to each other because it's over the centuries and everything, so they're all making the same point, which is cool. But on the other hand, the statement has been made, the Bible is the Word of God. And so, but it seems to be just the work of men. And then you have the translation problem, because you've got all these different languages and people trying to translate. This could be a question that the audience could have, and Bob could address it in some way based on his research. Just as a way to add a little more depth to his point. And I'm sure there's an answer. I'm just saying there's a little hole right there. And also maybe to give some suggestions on where to learn more about the Bible. You've given the teaser, so what do? So that would be another thing. But what I really liked about Bob's presentation, first of all, at the very beginning, did you notice he acknowledged everyone? He's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Everybody is just, it was just you know, like a big hug from Bob. I loved it. And then Bob's facial expressions. He'd say, well, so what is this about this thing? And he just has this great way to use his face to enhance whatever he's talking about. Bob, I don't know if you know that, but what is this that we're going to do? Just something like that.
So I got rid of my hair.
I know, because it was getting in the way of all that beautiful facial expression. Also, I really liked that he had a call to action. Don't just believe the Bible, but you need to apply it. And that was a really good thing at the end. And finally, just Bob's overall demeanor is just so engaging and it's so congenial. Don't you just feel like you're in the hands of somebody who's really, really competent? That's the way I felt. Cool.
Now I'd like to ask our timer if every evaluator qualified.
The speech evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes, and Will was 2 minutes, 33 seconds. Steve was 2 minutes, 46 seconds. Jean, 3 minutes and 26 seconds. She made it this time.
And so,
about
table topics? Table topics, evaluator Karen, yes, that was 2 minutes, 20 seconds.
all right, let's take a moment and vote for the
Karen,
best
Will,
evaluator.
Steve, and Jean.
Role players' reports. I'd like to ask Vera for the timer's report.
Table topics, Will was 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Stephanie, 2 minutes, 13 seconds. Bob Burns his speech was 7 minutes, 45 seconds. Darlene was 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Rick was 5 minutes, 24 seconds. Karen, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Will, evaluation, 2 minutes, 33 seconds. Steve, 2 minutes, 46 seconds. And Jean, 3 minutes, 26 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Vera. Now we'll have John Boros give his report as our counter.
Our counter tonight, it was slim pickings tonight. We're doing a good job. Karen had 1 1 end. Will Burns had 1 end. Darlene, 1 end. Bob, 1 1 so. Steve Harper, 5 uhs, 1 so, and 1 end. Thank you.
As for our grammarian's report, Jyoti Raj, please.
I'll just give this short description because we are running out of time. So everybody used almost the salvation because the speech were like not the exact salvation but Somebody used liberation, somebody used freedom. Somehow it is related to salvation. Wilburn used once freedom, not salvation. Karen, one, but that was liberation. Rick Starr, one time. Gene Simonton Craig, once. Bob Burns, 2 times. And all the quotes by Jeff Shepley was fabulous. I remember some of the phrases which I liked, but words I didn't catch that catchy words. Everything was catchy, but I couldn't catch very catchy words which are very different and interesting. But yeah. Will asks, will you be happy if you have every material things but no freedom? That was a very good question. Briggs start. None of the musical talent landed at me. Passed too much time. That is really remarkable. And Steve, wonderful. When you described about her gestures and postures, it was very nice, and you said wonderful smile, wonderful personality. That was very good. Inspirational words. Darling, she said we are all connected and one. That was a very good phrase. So Jean said Bob is inactive for 2 years. That is good reason to be active again. That was really catchy. And Bob said, how many books you know, so many people have written in the same theme. That was really catchy. And one suggestion for Satish, you said last section. It reminds me of the last section, not the coming section. So if you can use the final section instead of last, then we can understand that's a coming section, not the going section. That was my suggestion.
Wow, that's so
Thank you. I would like to ask our joke master, Mr. Dan Craig, to come up.
Does everybody know who Will Rogers is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really a fan of his homespun humor. So here are 10 little points that he's made. 1, never slap a man who's chewing tobacco. 2, never kick a cow chip on a hot day. 3, there are 2 theories to arguing with a woman, neither works. 4, never miss a good chance to shut up. 5, always drink upstream from the herd. 6, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. 7, the quickest way to double your money is to fold it and put it back in your pocket. 8, there are 3 kinds of men. The ones that learn by reading, the few who learn by observation. The rest of them have to pee on the electric fence and find out for themselves. 9, letting the cat out of the bag is a whole lot easier than putting it back. And finally, 10, good judgment comes from experience. And a lot of that comes from bad judgment.
I will give my general evaluation of the meeting and the evaluators. The meeting started a little bit late because we are just beginning our new year and it's our first night with new officers, and some of us had a foot in 2 different boats. I would like to see us get a little more organized before the next meeting. And if there's anyone that would like to be an assistant to the Sergeant at Arms here, please talk to me after the meeting. I thought the meeting was a very interesting, calming meeting for some reason. We had 3 guests and a member who returned after 3 years. Evaluations. Karen, I loved the way you came up front. You spoke directly to people. You made good eye contact. You used gestures. The table topics did go over a little because we got started late. The fact that you also gave good examples of what they did right, you demonstrated what the person did right, and then when it came time to give them a piece of information for personal self-expression improvement, you also demonstrated that. So that was very effective for the table topics people. Moving on to Will. Again, out front, self-confident, speaking with gestures, addressing Rick, being very personable with Rick about his speech, complimenting him on using advanced techniques, even though this is Rick's first speech with us. You mentioned that he used history in chronological order. He had an intro, a body, and a conclusion that were all very helpful to the audience and gave us a smooth feel for what happened. I appreciated your attention to detail with Rick. I also liked it that you had suggestions for him. Which at the moment I don't remember.
I hope he does.
There's something about details.
Yep. You're right. You want more detail.
More detail.
More details.
My son's name.
Okay, thank you, Will. That was wonderful. Now, Steve Harper, you were very enthusiastic, very self-confident, came out front, got to the point right away, rapid fire, went through the evaluation, you made good points, jumped back and forth between positive traits in the speech and things that could be improved on, but it was all related to what you were saying at the time. It wasn't the Oreo cookie effect, it was more like the multi-layered cake effect. I wanted to mention something that I thought was a contrast with Darlene's speech, and that was when she was sitting down and it brought out the third book, introduced it to us, and then she just kind of threw it on the floor, or dropped it with a plop on the earth, the dull earth, and then rang the bell. There was an audio contrast there that got my attention, and I actually thought at first it was too bad to put the beautiful book on the floor, but then I liked the contrast between the two sounds. Jean, you're always very positive and self-confident up here. You use great gestures to exaggerate your point and bring it home to the speaker. I saw that you learned a lot. I also learned a lot. There were parts of Bob's speech that I had no idea were history with the Bible. It was revealing to me also. I like that you brought that out. I enjoyed your point about differentiating between the Bible as the Word of God for those that actually believe in it and those who follow another religion, to give the audience a chance to ask themselves some questions about why is the Bible the Word of God. Would have livened it up some, because there was a point toward the end of the speech where your tone of voice was getting kind of matter-of-fact, and the rhythms that you were repeating were the same with some of those last few sentences. So there was a bit of monotone or monotony there. And I think Jean's suggestions for you would pep that up. And that is my conclusion for evaluations tonight. I turn this back to our Toastmasters.
Now we are moving to the final section, which is honoring the best performers of the day with ribbons, titles, and sheet. So the best, drum roll. Best table topic goes to Will. Yay. Speakers up here, please, to save time. The three speakers, Darlene, Bob, and Rick. Number 3, your ribbon. Follow your ribbon. And the best speaker goes to Rick.
Wow.
Now the best evaluator award goes to drumroll, Steve Harper. President Rhonda Whittaker.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters, for a wonderful meeting. We're a little short of time, so I'm going to make this brief. We will be meeting again next week, and I will still be your president, unless there's a Toastmasters Spring in Fairfield. So, now, we do ask before you leave that you stay for a few minutes and help us put the chairs back in order and put things away, take down the stage. With Sergeant at Arms, there's a lot of time and energy that's put into setting up the room and taking it down. We have switched something that everyone needs to be aware of next time. We have a member accountability program we've started where to cut down on time for Sergeant at Arms setup, people will pick up their evaluation forms at the door and their ballot and their pen at the door, and they will return anything they don't use back to the greeters table when they leave. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.